All right, now that we understand how constructor functions work, it's actually really easy to understand how classes work too. So classes is basically the same as a constructor function. When you create a class in JavaScript, the engine just runs a constructor function with some added code to make it special. So we use the keyword class. Let's do person now. Class person. And then you might think, hey, we need this to pass in arguments, but we do not. Just this. So this is a valid class. Person. Another way to define class is const person2 is equal to class. This is a class expression, class definition, just like functions. And also type of class, you get function, right? We can do type of person function. So if it's a function, does it mean that person.constructor was created by capital F function? Yes, that is true. Okay, so let's go back here. We want to create a new instance of a person with the name that we want. How do we do that? Well, you need to call the constructor method inside classes. When you call this constructor method inside classes, it actually calls your product constructor here, or the function constructor. And whatever you pass in here as arguments will be the same as the ones up here. So right now, we're just going to do name. And then this.name is equal to name. So just like constructor functions, the this keyword in classes will refer to the later created object instances that it will create. Yeah. All right. So now we can do const fill is equal to new person, passing in the string fill. Okay. And then let's console.log fill. Okay. We get the same thing. And look, its prototype is the object prototype. So we can also use toString and dot constructor. Cool, right? Okay, let's do a method on it. And for classes, the syntax is improved. Let's say we want to do a greet method. You just type the name, and then you do that. And let's just have it console.log. Hello, my name is, and then this.name. Okay, let's look at this again. You see that when we open up this object, the method greet is not on the object itself. Actually, it's on the prototype. So this is how class is an improvement over constructor functions. Okay? If you put a method outside of your constructor right here, it will automatically be put on this instance prototype. If instead we put it inside the constructor call, let's see what happens. Oh, at line 18. Oh, okay. If you put it inside, remember, you cannot use this syntax. You have to say the word this again. Okay. This.greet is equal to function, like that. Okay, now when we created an instance of person, you see that the greet function is now attached. Isn't that cool? But once again, most of the time, you're going to want all of your methods to be placed on the prototype, right? Think about all the array methods, all the string methods. Those live on prototypes. Any methods that your instances will be using a lot should go on your prototype. Now, there's actually 3 places that you can place your methods when you're creating a class or a constructor function. One, we can see that we can place it on the object instances themselves, but this is very memory intensive. 2, which is the optimal place to place most things, is on the prototype of the constructor, like array.prototype.map. Okay? But there's also a third way, on the constructor function itself. Why do we do this? And are there any examples of this actually happening? Yeah. Okay, let's look. The array constructor, its prototype has all of the methods that array can borrow from, right? But the array constructor itself has what's called a static method. Static means it's just on the constructor. It has isArray. Okay. If we do array dot has own property and we type in isArray right here, it will say true. If we type in map, it will say false. Okay, so why did the isArray get attached to the constructor? Well, this is just preference, but in this case, it makes sense. It's saying, hey, capital array creates all your arrays. So it should have a method that determines if something is an array, right? And now, if you do const arr is equal to a random array like this, you cannot do arr dot isArray. It's undefined. Why is that? Well, arr was created by capital A array. So arr's prototype is equal to capital array dot prototype. Okay. So when arr tries to call isArray, it's not going to find that method on itself. And if it can't find it, it goes to its prototype. Okay. It doesn't go to its constructor. It goes to its constructor's prototype, which is the same as its own prototype. Okay. Another one is number dot isNaN, isInteger, and isSafe integer. Okay. So you would only use these when it's not used as much, like map and filter, and the naming makes sense. Like this is a number constructor. It should have a static method on it that tells you if something is a number or not. Okay, so how would we put a method on the constructor function itself? Well, we can't put it in the class definition. If we put it inside the constructor, it gets attached to the object instance. If we put it outside, it gets attached to the prototype. So we have to do something like this. Grab the constructor itself and then add the property or method on manually. Okay. Now, if you do person.has own property and then type in greet, it will be true. Now, you might be a little bit confused. You're saying, hey, person is a function. How come we can use dot notation to add and remove properties on it? Well, remember, all functions, including person, was constructed by capital F function. When any function gets constructed, not just your own functions, even JavaScript's functions, they get wrapped in an object wrapper, because in JavaScript, all types are actually just objects except for primitives. Okay? So functions are just objects that you can call, that has the call method. Arrays are just objects where the keys are strings and they go from 0 to whatever you want. Okay? So in JavaScript, for something to be an object or has an object wrapper means you can use dot notation, okay, to create properties or methods. Can you use something like this since it's also an object? Can you do that? Yeah. And then you do person.has own property greet. Would it still be true? Yes. Okay. So person constructor function is actually an object underneath the hood. Another improvement, and the last one, that classes have over constructor functions is that if I forget the new keyword, it gives me an error. But let's go up to here. I deleted the new keyword here. So now if we type in Rolex, it's undefined, but we do not get an error. So this is bad. We don't want something to get turned into undefined and the code keeps running. Okay? We want the code base or the engine to actually notify us so that we can debug.